We're going to be talking about how local governments can support small businesses during the pandemic. Get started in just 1 second. I do want to let you know that we are recording today's webinar, so please keep in mind. Please continue to mute on your end, and we encourage you to use the chat box to ask us questions along the way. All right, well, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us again. I'm Tanua Thrash Intuk. I'll be the host for today, walking through our small business toolkit to support local governments in their efforts to support local small businesses and community during this pandemic crisis. We thank you for joining us, and then wanted to remind you of two things. One, that we're recording, and two, that we encourage you to ask questions through the chat box. What we'll do is walk through a few of the toolkit best practice ideas, and then be happy to take some questions along the way. I'm joined today by several of my colleagues, including Emma Kloppenberg, Program Officer, as well as Sam, who is our assistant, and Sam Salmon is assisting us with today's webinar. Thank you so much for your support. So to get started, what we'll do is really start talking about the mission of Liske. Wanted to make sure that all of our partners on the line were familiar with Liske and a bit about our background. We work with residents and partners to forge resilient and inclusive communities of opportunity across America, and we look to create great places to live, work, visit, do business, and raise a family. Liske is a national organization. We have 35 offices across the country. The Los Angeles office is one of 4 offices in the state of California. We have Bay Area, San Diego, a rural office, and of course, our Los Angeles office. Our Los Angeles office works in both Los Angeles County as well as Orange County. And we work with cities, local organizations to help them ensure that they can build affordable housing, support economic development, as well as small businesses. Just to give you a little bit of background, last year, Liske's impact was quite considerable. We closed more than 31 million in affordable housing loans to support the development of affordable housing. We did nearly 1.6 million in economic development and small business lending, supporting small businesses throughout the region. We also helped to deploy approximately 870,000 in grants to 19 organizations. One of the roles that we have as an intermediary is pulling together resources to make sure that they get out into the community. And last year we brought online, because of our lending in previous years, about 412 new units of affordable housing. And we had trainings where at least 270 individuals participated in those trainings and capacity building work. So very proud of that. Feel free to visit our website at www.liske.org/los-angeles Angeles. That way you'll be able to see our entire annual report for 2019 and a number of other updates about the things that we're working on, certainly during this time, but outside of COVID-19 as well. Of course, we just want to say as well, our hearts go out to anybody whose families are experiencing any difficulties or sickness as associated with this virus. And we know that both families, communities, and businesses are all impacted by this. With this toolkit that we put together, the idea was really to create a set of skills and experiences that we could pull together as a region to begin to think about and talk about how we can learn from one another and support our businesses. So I'll get right into the toolkit itself. The toolkit is, again, really to support small businesses. And one of the things that we put in this toolkit, first and foremost, is a deferment of all payments for small businesses. So we know that sometimes, for example, cities have small business lending programs that they are implementing or have outstanding loans with those businesses. We've been encouraging cities to consider deferring any payments on those or restructuring those business loans. In addition to that, given that so many businesses, of course, are not able to really collect revenue right now, we've been asking cities to really look at what are all of the various different payments that you're expecting from small businesses. Some cities have additional taxes, additional fees, licensing fees that are expected to come from small businesses. Now is the time to really look at what can we defer and defer for some period of time, possibly to 2021 and even beyond that. Some cities also have their own utilities within the jurisdiction of the city. And we are encouraging those cities to really look at, how can you also use the opportunity to focus on bringing utility bills around some level of deferment for those small businesses. We provided in the case study in the toolkit, you'll take a look at it. We provided a couple case studies of cities. We talked about San Francisco and Seattle and some of the taxes that they have been able to defer for small businesses. Our next area is really all about providing business assistance. What we have found is that now more than ever, small businesses need additional assistance because this is everything from how do I come up with, or how do I focus on as a business the kinds of things that I need to do in order to sustain my business during a pandemic. So connecting with local SBDCs is really important, connecting with the SBA. I know that the LA Chamber, for example, is also hosting some workshops and to support small businesses, but it's really necessary that economic development and community development partners, cities, departments bring together those partners who are typical technical assistance providers and maybe even some that are not so typical, so that you can figure out and map out for your city and your region, where are those resources. We're also seeing that a number of businesses are looking to go online. And so there's a lot of support that's needed to help businesses figure out how to manage inventory, what platforms can be used, making sure that they're able to, take pictures and, get things up online and be ready to now have a different kind of business than they had before. For food-based businesses, for example, some of them are going to need a lot of support in terms of moving from a dine-in experience to a delivery service. Some haven't done that kind of thing before, so it's important that we bring together networks to make that happen. And then finally, we're also seeing that a number of businesses are looking to reposition what they traditionally offer, so that the supplies that they're offering right now, the services and goods they're supplying right now, are really responding to what's needed during a pandemic. And so there may be a need to do a call for a series of businesses that have the potential to have major impact. So trying to figure out, do you have a number of businesses that could help with PPE, the protective wear for our first responders? You have businesses that can assist with hand sanitizer? Do you have businesses that can assist with additional food supply? So really, taking the time to do a sort of a read through of what are the type of businesses that are in your city, in your region, and how can they reposition their business models to better support what's happening in the pandemic right now. So Emma, I'll stop there for just a second because I want to make sure that if we have any questions that have popped up, that we're able to hear about those right now. Oh, Emma, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We do not have any questions yet, Tanua.
Great. So now let's move on to our third area. This is all about investing capital with our small businesses. So right now, we know that so many businesses have probably already exceeded sort of their cash life cycle that's available to them, given that we know that most businesses have less than 27 days. We know food-based businesses have 13 days, and businesses that are often operating in low-income communities have even less cash cash available in terms of cash days to go without receiving a considerable amount of revenue. And so we are looking at how do we help businesses really maintain a level of capital during this time. Part of what we are seeing is some cities looking at using CDBG dollars. Others are taking EDA dollars that had been positioned for maybe other activities and getting approval to be able to use them for low-cost loans. We certainly encourage you, if you can, to try and identify products that allow for 0% interest, 0% fee, and also are products that are, have a threshold that is much smaller and micro in scale to try and reach those businesses that are probably not going to be able to access the SBA products, for example. We know that in the city of Los Angeles, for example, they have structured a low-cost loan that has a no cost for a period of time for the first few months or so. And if it can't be paid back within an 18-month time period, then it would carry an interest rate. We also are really experts in helping local cities develop low-cost capital, no-cost capital through our partnership with Kiva, for example. And we've worked with the city of Los Angeles as well as the city of Long Beach to help them both set up Kiva platforms where their cities are Kiva cities. And what that has meant is that those cities are able to encourage other local residents who want to help provide lending support as little as $25 to support a local small business. They have been able to do that kind of lending in a crowdfunding platform. So if a business is looking to raise, for example, $10,000 on a 0% interest, 0% fee Kiva loan through the partnership that we have with cities as Liske and with local cities, we're able to raise private capital. And that private capital is able to accelerate the ability to be able to help that business access overall capital. So at a $10,000 raise that a small business wants to raise, if they're able to raise at least $5,000 on the platform, we've been able to, with private capital, support that dollar for dollar and match it so that they can get to their goal quicker. So we're encouraging cities to look at, how do they create emergency loan funds and or grant programs to support small businesses. It really goes hand in hand with the next toolkit matter, which is really forming public-private partnerships. There are certainly things that public capital can do and things that maybe private capital can help. And we are seeing, I just described the Kiva. I'm happy to talk about that a little bit more. But essentially, you as a city can create these private sources of capital that also have some public support, where the public entity can help to staff this activity, get the information out, educate the public about their ability to help either lend or to help businesses know that this is available. It's also a great way to engage private firms that are doing well during the pandemic and want to be able to help other firms who possibly might be in their supply chains. So this is a great way to do that. We've also been looking at, there are ways for local governments to serve as guarantees for loans that are made by the private sector or that are made by community development financial institutions like Liske. So if the city has, several millions of dollars and they want to try and figure out how to use those in a way that might stretch those dollars and leverage them a little further. If you get, for example, a guarantee source of around, let's just say, $4 million, or the city has $4 million, it could serve as a guarantee, which means that the private sector could be willing to lend upwards of $10 million to local businesses in your region. So it's, depending on how much you have available will be how much you can attract in additional private dollars. And then finally, it's really possibly just about raising philanthropy. And what we're seeing is that some mayors, some local elected officials are pulling together. In the city of Los Angeles, the Mayor's Fund, for example, is a private entity that takes private donations from individuals, corporations, and others. And that allows for you to be able to bring in those private dollars and then use them for some level of public benefit. I'll stop there. Emma, I don't know if there are any questions so far.
There are not. Oh, sorry, I missed one. There is one. Can you explain the other process for establishing Kiva partnership? Michelle, if you want to elaborate on your question, you're welcome to do so. That's from Michelle Garrett.
Okay, so Michelle, thank you so much for your question. We can provide maybe a little brief description about the Kiva program here, and then happy to talk offline as well and provide additional details. Essentially, Liske as a lender has the capacity to be able to raise private to support small businesses. And we have a partnership with Kiva that allows us to identify what Kiva calls local trustees. So organizations, could be cities, could be nonprofits, could be universities, could be others who are working closely with small businesses, where we help to identify those trustees and market. We provide them with some level of training and technical assistance. That way they are interested in, or that way they have a chance to be able to learn about the program, and they are identifying local businesses. They're not serving as a guarantee financially in any way, but they are serving as a partner who can look at their business plan and ensure that it's real and that their business is operating, and more or less it's like character reference, I would say, is what the trustee is. So we identify trustees, we train trustees and help them really identify strong characteristics of businesses that'll be successful. From there, we work with cities. Sometimes cities have invested resources in terms of staffing support to be able to pull together their business improvement districts, their business associations. and be able to share more about the program with those entities who are in contact with businesses, and to be able to share with their city residents who might also become what are considered to be lenders. And then jointly with the city, we've been able to go out in most cases and raise private capital or philanthropy dollars. By raising those philanthropy dollars, it allows us to be able to pass on as much of that as possible to the businesses themselves. And just like I described before, we have we might have a trustee who comes on board. The trustee recommends a business, and then that business is approved through the Kiva platform. They are looking to raise, let's say, $5,000 because they're referred by one of our trustees, and we have the philanthropy dollars. As they raise a dollar, we are able to match that dollar for dollar, and hopefully help them get to their goal faster. And all of these funds under that platform are 0% interest, 0% fee. But happy to talk some more about that a little later.
Thanks, Tanua. Yes, we have one more question, and I also wanted to note, if you do have questions, please put it in the chat box to all of the group so that we can all see it. We have one question from Roberta. Are any of the smaller cities in LA County setting up emergency loan funds?
We haven't necessarily seen them yet. Part of why we are having this conversation is that we're hoping to encourage smaller cities to set up those loan funds. Next week, I'm going to host another webinar, the same time, same place, where we're going to have Facebook, Verizon, the County of LA and the City of LA talk about their loan funds, the source of those funds, and what it took to set them up. Verizon and Facebook will talk about their grant programs that'll be available to small businesses. So our next item is instating a moratorium on evictions. This one, some cities it works for other cities we recognize that it may be difficult, but we are encouraging as much as you can to try and keep businesses in place during this time. There are some cities that have some of the larger cities have passed such moratoriums, San Francisco, San Diego, as well as LA. But one of the other things that we have just started researching is really looking at what kind of property tax relief can be provided to owners who are able to defer or forgive a portion of commercial rent. And that's something that, that we're exploring, that we think could be an option to support owners, because while we want to keep businesses in place and keep them in communities that certainly need the economic activity once this is over, we know how difficult this can be for owners. And so we are also looking at how do we balance ensuring that there is some policy that supports owners and their ability to be able to recoup losses potentially associated with an eviction moratorium. Number 6 is really all about what we call a call for data. We believe that it is really critical, and based on our research, that we begin to really try and understand what's happening to small businesses. So we encourage cities to create a database that allows for them to collect information from businesses to understand what was their size before the pandemic? What are they experiencing? What do they believe are for the top issues that are most important to be addressed? What kind of help do they need? We also, in our Toolkit point out the importance of having this information be made available in multiple languages, so that businesses of all kinds within the cities are able to participate and effectively get access to hopefully support on the other end. But the information has to be made available in language so businesses are able to respond accordingly. We also encourage cities to use nonprofit partners and other non-traditional partners to get this to try and collect this information from businesses. Sometimes relying on our traditional ways of collecting information, we may miss businesses that are just not part of a traditional grid and maybe didn't see the need to be part of a business association, a business improvement district. So it's going to be important that we kind of get out there, possibly do some door knocking, some flyering, so that businesses that typically would not get counted, would not have their needs heard, get to be part of such a call for data. And we believe that this information is real time. And can be used to help the city determine, what is the best use of any resources that come in, so that you can plan and know maybe what parts of the city need help and what kind of help is really needed. Emma, we good?
Yes, we have more questions. I didn't know if you want to take them now. I know that you have your other panelists are on, but I can go through a couple of them if you would like.
Why don't I just finish up this buy local, and then let's hear a couple of those, and then we'll get started on our second half of our webinar. So the finding is really all about buy local campaigns. We believe that there is power in reminding people about the great businesses that are in their community. And giving them a chance to receive that information as much as possible in their inboxes, to the extent that we can, via text message, and also even via mail. What we're seeing is that we're finding that some places are launching social media marketing campaigns where there is a emphasis on maybe even identifying food-based businesses in a district, but also other businesses, housewares and other things that might still be open by appointment only. We think it'll be critical to partner with local chambers and business associations. That way you can have somebody on the ground who can touch the businesses more directly and more often. To the extent that you can have specialty days, or encouraging folks to dine out, or to see about certain businesses in their community. We called one day Thai Tuesday. Of course, many of us know Taco Tuesday as well, as a common theme. We also believe that it's really important that the cities work hand in hand with businesses to really promote health standards. We know that many cities are requiring now that food service workers have protective gear when preparing food. And so it's really important that people feel confident and have a lot of confidence that what they're accessing in terms of food and other business activities, that they'll be safe in that process. So we'll take one or two questions here. Emma, probably a couple of them are clustered around ideas.
Yes. So you have a couple questions. One from Hannah. Hannah asked, Governor Gavin Newsom announced FEMA will pay for meals to be prepared by restaurants and delivered to vulnerable seniors. Do you know of the details of the structure of this? If not, can you speak to businesses being engaged by the government to meet the social needs?
That is an excellent question to actually move us into the second half of our conversation for today. I don't have details on the FEMA program just yet. but we will note that and see if we can get some answers associated with that. The second half of our conversation is all about action that's being taken right now by local leaders who are wanting to make sure that one of the things that we're finding is that too many of LA County and Orange County residents in particular who were already vulnerable are having a hard time accessing food. And so the second half of this conversation is all about that. Why don't I transition into that, Emma?
Okay, yes, and if we have time, we can circle back to the Q&As, and if we happen to run out of time, we are happy to answer these emails offline. Thank you.
Great. So thank you for sharing in the chat box, everybody. Continue to do that. And we will, I noticed in the chat box quickly that there were a lot of questions about the Kiva program. So we're happy to follow up with people who have some of those specific questions as well for today. For the remainder of our time, we're going to get a chance to hear about some innovative food access solutions that are being administered by both at the county level, the city level, and even in the private nonprofit level as well. I want to thank our guests for coming on such short notice and being willing to share their experiences and what they're seeing so far. Let me go ahead and just introduce everybody who's on the line today. So we've got Veronica Sagala. She's a program manager with the LA County as part of the Adult Protective Services Program and Planning Department. I've asked her to come on to talk about the county's support that they're providing to seniors and vulnerable populations and helping them to access food during this time. I also have on the line Joanne Kim. Oh, I just heard that Kimberly is filling in for Veronica. So Kimberly, I'll have you give your whole name in just a second. Kimberly Madison, thanks for joining us. We also have Joanne Kim, who's the Deputy Director for LA City Council member Marquise Harris Dawson. And in their office, I asked them to come on because they are working with local small businesses, food businesses, and using resources to make sure that seniors within their community are able to access healthy and fresh foods. And so she'll talk about that program, how they're helping to keep a small business alive, or several small businesses alive during this pandemic, while also providing an important service. And then I also have Lola Blaudini, who is the founder of Dine11. As a nonprofit organization, we're seeing several nonprofit organizations get into the mix of helping to make sure that there is food access. And Lola's going to talk about Dine11's efforts to activate and cultivate a network of food access and how you could do something similar in your communities. Ladies, thank you all for joining me. Mic check. Can they hear? Thank
you.
Oh, great. Hi, Lola.
Hi.
So Lola, tell people what is Dine11?
Dine11 is a volunteer-based organization that I put together with a group of friends, and we've raised money, and our focus is really about helping local, small, independent restaurants keep the lights on. And what we do is we use the money that we've raised to place orders at these restaurants and then deliver the food ourselves to hospitals and care, like the staff at hospitals during the crisis. We started out because one of my dear friends is an ER doctor, and right at the very beginning of the COVID-19 crisis, she was expressing just sort of low morale in her ER. And so we thought that we'd just send over some food, and then that ended up turning into a nonprofit that we started, and we're servicing 35 hospitals now and over 60, 70 restaurants that we're using on our roster. And we have dozens and dozens in the wings waiting to use our services.
Great, Lola, that's wonderful. So what about, how are you are you raising money from individuals? You know, how are you getting money into the nonprofit to be able to place these food orders?
Well, it's tricky because this really started out with me putting a group text together to 8 friends saying, "Can you Venmo me money and I'll place an order and take it over to the hospital." And that kind of rippled out to the point where I suddenly had thousands of dollars coming in and realized I was going to be taxed on it. So I realized I quickly had to, if I was going to continue this, start a nonprofit. And luckily, I got in touch with the people at March On, and they took me on as a fiscal sponsor. And I was able to use their umbrella for the nonprofit status instead of going through the bureaucracy. But this has all been through private donorship. This has all been through my network of friends and then my friends' network of friends, and really just who we know. We're a loud bunch, so we've been able to get this kind of money coming in. But there's a certain point where you have shaken all of the trees in your circle or your 2 outer circles, and so now we're trying to go to private donorship sponsorship. Like I'm reaching out to corporations for matching funds, to studios in Los Angeles, to sports entities for their players and their foundations. So I'm just trying to broaden our network.
Sure.
You know, there's a certain point where, I mean, we're all going to go back to work. None of us who have formed this nonprofit are in this world. We're not in food. We're not in hospitals. We're not in nonprofit. We just were a bunch of friends that cared about what was happening to the restaurants and to the healthcare workers, and it was sort of a win-win, hand in hand.
Yeah.
But there's a certain point where you have to say, like, I have to say to myself, I have done what I can do, and I'm going to have to go back to my job, you know?
Sure.
Yeah. But for now, this is what I'm doing, you know?
Yeah. Well, Lola, what I'm loving about what you're doing is it's showing what the possibilities are, even with a group of volunteers. And we want to be able to kind of watch your progress, because I think there may be other cities or other people in other communities who can learn from what you were able to do in terms of raising the funds, having a nonprofit, and then being able to get food to those who are on the front lines. Thank you so much for that.
There are people who have already we have a manifesto on our website that says how to do this in your town. And there are 5 have popped up that have followed that so far, and we're hoping to activate more people.
That's great. I do want to move to Joanne. So Joanne, I don't see you there, but I'm hoping that I'll hear you shortly.
Really? You can't see
Okay,
me?
there you are.
My
No,
video
it's
is
just,
on.
oh, I got you. I got you. It's just because I have a limited view as the presenter. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, thanks for joining us today. I told people that, I really wanted to hear, about your program. How did the council office, the council person pull together these resources? And how has the program been successful in delivering meals to seniors?
Thanks for inviting us on to talk about the meal program, Tanua. First of all, good morning, everyone. The program, we seeded the program because all of our large gathering events in the community were going to be canceled. So we took all the funds to put on, the St. Andrews Jazz Festival, the Pride Day, Mother's Day, all these events that we have every year. Although Pride, this is our 3rd year. I think it was the first Pride event in South LA. We took those funds, and one of the first motions was to redirect them towards an emergency meal program for our homebound seniors, ones that don't live in assisted facilities that provide meals and such, right? And so our senior housing developments and people in individual homes. And at the same time, we were getting a lot of calls from our small businesses And so we decided to link the two together. We knew that our senior meal programs were going to be stretched thin, and that, you know, our small businesses don't necessarily have those kinds of contracts that can keep them going in a period like this. So we are currently in our 4th week. You know, our office and a few nonprofits are helping to manage this logistical feat because we have, let's see, I had a couple figures here. We have about 12 senior homes participating, senior developments that have, you know, some have hundreds in them. And then we have several hundred individual homes. We have about 1,100 seniors, 26 small businesses. We're on our 4th week, so it's 10,000, a little over 10,000 meals that we've given out. We deliver them every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And Lyft just joined us this week. They have hired, they have allowed their South LA drivers who live in our district to opt in to participate in this program, and they're helping to provide free deliveries to complement the capacities of our businesses. We're really growing together because many did not deliver before this period. So, you know, we had a nice piece on the front page of the Times and Eater, which helped create some more contributions from the private sector. The council member has redirected discretionary funds, which took a couple more weeks, discretionary funds to help fund it, but it's public and private.
Great. Well, I mean, this part of what we're, you know, doing with this session, and thank you so much for sharing some of that background, is this idea that you were going to be spending money on a series of festivals and sort of convenings where people were going to be coming together. So now, instead of spending it on that, you redirected those funds to spend it now on, you know, food procurement for people who really need it. And by starting that investment as the public sector, you've been able to gain the momentum of the private sector coming along with you and stepping in and where they can in order to support the process of getting food to people. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
I do want to point out that one of the unintended good consequences of this is in this period where businesses are trying, small businesses that aren't, you know, they have less than 10 employees, they're trying to figure out how to survive this period. It's created a level of discipline within our office, as well as with the businesses, to do something that we've been wanting to do for a long time, which is to make these businesses city vendors, city approved vendors. So, you know, very few of our businesses have those contracts from the city of Los Angeles. And I think where we can get, you know, some of our businesses in there, you know, the city of LA is a very large client. But oftentimes, you know, we just don't have the time to focus, get the paperwork together, you know, do the work that's required to actually, you know, get approved. A little over half of our businesses, and then, you know, they keep growing, have become approved, because we have to think about, after this period, what does the recovery look like?
Yeah, that is a topic that was not in the toolkit, but one that has come up, and it is as cities begin, you know, as we get to a point where we're talking about recovery and remake, how do we make sure that we can continue to support those businesses that were really vulnerable by connecting them with contract opportunities with the city, making sure that they're a vendor and that they're part of that process.
Right. And I think the relationships, you know, this is something that's not as quantifiable as the other things are in terms of money and meals and all of that. But I think the relationships that are being developed within the community between small businesses that are all, you know, very local, very close to these seniors that they may have not even known existed is really important and will outlast the pandemic.
Yes, Great. Well, I want to get Kimberly here into the conversation. Kimberly, can I wanted to make sure I heard you. Can
You did. I'm here.
Oh, great. Good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. So Kimberly Madison, tell me your role at the LA County.
So I am the mobility manager over our transportation division under Adult Protective Services at the Workforce Development, Aging, and Community Services Department.
Thanks for joining us this morning. So the county has announced, we want to make sure that seniors and other vulnerable community members are able to still access groceries and food, but it's often difficult. Some of them don't even have transportation or relied on public transportation in order to get to a grocery store. So tell us about the program that the county has started and where did those resources come from?
Absolutely. So what we've done is we've started the Critical Delivery Services Program. And what the way that we have set that up is we had a transportation service that transported our older adults, 60 years and over, individuals with disabilities, and dependent adults to and from anywhere within Los Angeles County, including all the 88 cities and unincorporated areas. So we have taken the funding from that money, amended our contract, and moved forward to we're keeping those services open for any kind of emergency transportation for medical, different types of things like that. However, we have added on the Critical Delivery Services Program to be able to transport food, any types of vital necessities from residence to residence, from stores to the individuals that are seniors and our vulnerable populations. We have, it's really exciting to hear the other partners because I think that we are just being inundated with calls, and the hardest thing for us has been able to build the partnership because we're just dealing with such an influx of calls and the needs for meals. And we, at this point, are not providing the meals, we're just providing the free delivery service. And so it's really being able to network, I think, is so important. I think that was one of the things that Joanne spoke about, is being able to build the partnerships. As we set up, I believe it was about 4 weeks ago. However, there wasn't a lot of movement until it was announced through the Board of Supervisors. And then 2 weeks ago, we have not done anything but deal with getting additional agents trained on the phones to be able to answer and really assist our population with understanding how they go online. The biggest problem we're having right now is we have a population that either pays with their EBT card or what people know as food stamps, and aren't able to do that online. And so we're trying to get there to be a lax on them being able to pay for their food online so we can deliver the food to them as well. There's just another whole level of clients that don't know how to use the internet. So being able to assist them with doing, how do they go on? How do they create an account? How do they order the food? And then also just being able to make sure that if they need anything delivered, whether it's from a family member or from, just from a food bank, anywhere that we can get them what they need delivered to them. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, every conversation that we're having right now, there isn't one that does not include the digital divide. It was such a cliche to say that in 2020, the top of the year, but yet every conversation that I'm having regarding COVID-19, if it's education, small business, health, food access, everything has come down to do you have the internet access, or do you have the adept and sort of comfort level with technology to be able to get what you need? So this here again shows that it still continues to be a thread. There seems to be a number of questions for our panelists. Emma, I'm going to toss it to you and see if you could share with me some of the questions that people have.
Yes, and thank you to all of our panelists. So this question is for Lola. The question is seeking more clarity on the neighborhoods that you are delivering to, and then also the volunteers that you are using. Do you limit your volunteer corp to those 64 and younger?
Volunteerism is ageless. No, we limit our volunteer ages. Anyone can sign up at volunteers@911.org.
And what neighborhoods do you deliver to currently?
We deliver to hospitals all throughout greater Los Angeles. We deliver to Panorama City, Compton, the West Valley, Glendale. I mean, we go to the hospital, so it's the VA, it's county, it's Kaiser, Baldwin Park. So we're all over.
Oh, great. Thank you. Then our next question is for all panelists. Are any of you all using or leveraging the school network as a venue?
School, did you say?
Yes.
Schools, yes.
I can answer what we're trying to do. We're trying to, as the crisis is, our first goal was to try and help the frontline healthcare workers. But as we're seeing that California has sort of gotten ahead of that arc and flattened the curve a bit. I mean, there's still like another week to see that we're in good hands in that way. But from all of the conversations that we've been having with healthcare workers in the ERs and ICUs, the ERs are pretty empty right now. But we're seeing that our services may not be as needed in the healthcare system, and we would really like to pivot to providing meals for low-income families and children who get their meals at schools that are not obviously happening right now. Because I see in my neighborhood that I live in Chinatown near downtown, and all the schools around me, like in Echo Park and East LA, the lines are very long for getting these meals, and they're only available between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. And so if you don't get it by then, you're sort of out of luck. And our goal is to really try and help these restaurants. And so what we're really trying to do is put money into these restaurants to help these small mom and pop businesses stay open, and now pivot towards helping low-income families with meals. That's what we really want to focus on.
Great.
I don't want to cut Joanne off if she's ready. If she's not, I'm going to go ahead then. As far as what the county has done, it's not directly through my particular program, which is the delivery services program, but our elderly nutrition program. They have partnered actually with the vendors who provide meals to the school districts, because a lot of them are not actually needing to provide as many meals, or not being requested to provide as many meals as they normally would. And so there are several vendors that are working with our home delivered meals, which is they're actually ordering through the catering service that normally deals with the school district, and is using them to actually provide meals for our older adult population and for our individuals with disabilities. And then I think that answers the question, unless someone needs me to elaborate.
Emma, it seemed that we had one more question that we could take for the panelists just before I get ready to close out. Emma, I hear you.
Oh, my apologies. I was muted. I was saying we have a question from Terry Dubaton. Terry asks, how do we refer companies with available commercial transportation vehicles?
So are any of our panelists looking for a vendor support who has commercial vehicles that could potentially move food?
So I'm not, because that's exactly what we're doing. So not on our, we are the transportation service. We're looking for people who can provide the meals or take orders, or who can be shoppers. That's truly what we're looking for, is the partnership of small businesses that are willing to deal with our aging population, take orders over the phone, or do or someone to be a shopper that can put things together, order things online, that kind of a thing. We're truly the delivery service at this point.
Great. Well, at this time, and I will go ahead and thank our panelists so much for being here. Kimberly Madison, Joanne Kim, Lola Gualdini. Thank you all for all your work that you're doing to look at creative and innovative solutions to try and get food access. For today's session, again, as a reminder, Liske Los Angeles put together this toolkit as a way to encourage cities to work together, to cull best practices, and to learn from one another, and to try and identify strategies and ways that we can support our communities and small businesses as we wait for federal and additional state help. The Local Initiative Support Corporation is glad that you joined us today. We will send you a copy of the contact information for those of you who were on the line of our panelists today in case you want to get in touch with them with any additional questions. And we will have a webinar next week. Next week's webinar is all about 0% interest loans, as well as grants that can be made available to support small businesses. I talked about who our panelists might be earlier, or who will be, who are confirmed earlier. We have a representative from Facebook, Verizon, the County of Los Angeles, and the City of Los Angeles. And Liske will also be in a position to potentially talk about some additional grants that we are doing in partnership with Wells Fargo. We want to thank our lead sponsor for today, Wells Fargo, for their resources that allowed us to be able to work so quickly to get the toolkit together and to be able to share it with all of you. We encourage you to put your notes in the chat box and to connect with us. If there are topics within the toolkit that you would love to hear more about, we'd love to hear from you so that we can plan our programming accordingly. And with that, I want to thank my staff members, both Emma and Sam, for their assistance in making sure that today's webinar went as smoothly as it did. We hope you be safe and well out there, and thank you so much for your time, and we hope to see and hear from you next week. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.